comfortable. I'm so delighted to be with you all this evening for readings by Joshua Garcia and Charles Theonia. My name is Laura Henriksen. I'm the program director here at the Poetry Project. And before we get started, I have just the briefest announcements and reminders. First, there are 2 all-gender restrooms located upstairs and 2 more here on the first floor through the sanctuary. If you need to get to those sanctuary bathrooms, just find me or anyone working tonight and we can open the door for you. It's really a thrill to be with you this evening. We have a lot of other great stuff coming up, so just to share some future and some imminent events with you. Next Wednesday, we'll be back for, cool, thank you. Next Wednesday, we'll be back for Soretta Morgan and Jared Stanley, which I can't wait for. And then on Friday, Cody Rose Clevedence and Sahar Kraibani. And then the next week, just to keep getting into May, we'll be launching the selected poems of Jim Brodey, which I'm also really, really looking forward to. So a lot of wonderful stuff coming up. And those are all of my announcements. So now I'm very, very honored to turn it over to Alan Felsenthal to introduce Joshua Garcia.
Good evening. Joshua Garcia's lyric poems are honest and tender, gentle with the reader, unmistakably queer. I came across his work while reading submissions for the Poetry Project's Emerge Surface B Fellowship. Right away, I knew that I wanted to work with him. Immediately, I wondered, can a poet this tender-hearted on the page be as gentle in real life? Not always, but with Joshua, the answer is yes. It's not an act. Joshua is as generous as his poems. The relationship between the poet and the idea of acceptance is one subtext of Joshua's first book, Pentimento, just published by Black Lawrence Press. The dedication pages quote, "For the queers, with us and before us." The book, which is generous enough to sustain the queers of the future too, asks what we can accept, what can be accepted, and whether we are included on that list. The book's answer is that no one is barred from that list. The person who is too young to, quote, discern the virtue of ambiguity, the lovers who resist interpretation through inexactness, the queers who built art in the first place, and the queers they saved. In the final poem of the book, entitled Pumping Gas at a Shell Station on National Coming Out Day, the poet states, for the record, quote, "I am unwaveringly gay. If you had any doubt of that by the end of this book, that's on you." Pentimento is a devotional book. As Nathaniel Dorsky says in his lecture on devotional cinema, the word devotion, as I am using it, need not refer to the embodiment of a specific religious form. Rather, it is the opening or interruption that allows us to experience what is hidden and to accept with our hearts our given situation. Though religion, the turning toward and away from it, marks many of these poems, the devotion on display is toward art. This turning toward art is not pretentious. It doesn't assume you need to know everything before reading the poems. The title, Pentimento, is defined in the first few pages, the Italian word for to repent, or a visible trace of a mistake, or an earlier composition seen through later layers of paint on a canvas. Painters, Georgia O'Keeffe, Elias Garcia Martinez, David Hockney, Philip Pearlstein, the list goes on, are the saints of Joshua's poetics. As are composers. In the new poems, the spirit of the Princess Turandot, who asks 3 riddles of her suitors and beheads them for answering incorrectly, leads us directly into the poet's consciousness. Not only are the characters in Puccini's opera present, but Puccini himself, his lovers, and the lovers of the poet enter with their voices, and the poet's encounters become a mirror to art. Other voices populate Joshua's poems. You're as likely to encounter Derek Jarman as you are to overhear the King James Bible. There is room here for everyone. Please help me welcome Joshua Garcia.
Hello. Alan, I'm like glowing after that. Thank you for that really kind and warm introduction. Yeah, and I wanted to start with thank yous. Alan, first to you. Alan's been my mentor through the Emerge Surface B Fellowship here at the Poetry Project, and you have been a generous, careful, attentive reader, and have really shaped the direction that my new work is going, and I'm so grateful for you. Alan has a book coming out in June called Hereafter, and in the book he says, stationary or in motion, the force bonding the universe, friendship. I just want to thank you for modeling that to me, and I know to so many other people. I want to quickly thank the Poetry Project for just everything, all the support that I've received through the Emerge Surface B Fellowship, for creating a community of writers and an inclusive community of artists. Charles, thank you for sharing this evening. I'm so excited to hear you read your work. I want to start by first just reading a poem by the Palestinian poet Mossab Abu Toha. And this poem is just out in the new Plowshares. It's called Two Watches. He's wearing two watches, one set to local time in New York, the other in Gaza. In a cafe with friends, waiting for his tea at the round table, and whenever his eyes fall on the dial of the Gaza watch, he can see the kids of his Gaza neighborhood running in the alleys, girls playing hopscotch, boys playing soccer. At night, if the light in the Gaza watch doesn't work, he knows electricity is off in his neighborhood. If the metal case grows warm, he knows bombs are starting to fall on Gaza. If the hands of the watch do not move, he knows a relative or a friend has died, and that the watch won't work again until the body is buried. What happens if the body is not there anymore? So on the webpage for this event, there was a really nice, I guess, a blurb describing Charles and my work as exploring desire in the body. And as I was thinking about what to read today and what to read in this special and unique space, which happens to also be a church, I wanted to read poems of devotion. Alan, thank you for using that word. Devotion, both maybe spiritually, but also just to the body itself. And I'm going to be reading from my new book, Pentimento. And I'm going to open with a poem called The Origin of the World. My girlfriends tell me about their vaginas while we sunbathe in a backyard or stand in a doorway. At kitchen tables, they tell me about their pelvic floors and uncover miscellanies of trauma. Excuse me. At kitchen tables, they tell me about their pelvic floors and uncover miscellanies of trauma. I haven't heard much of their joys, though, the ones I imagine in the world somewhere like wild orchids drawing water right out of the air. A married friend tells me she orgasmed, finally, on her own, and blows gently on her Thai coconut soup as if to soothe a kind of shame. As for the rest, perhaps we only share the sufferings of our bodies, the joys too sacred to expose, resisting translation as Yahweh does, afraid of what sacrifice may be required at the altars of our pleasure. My girlfriends tell me of their own phantom pains folding deeper into tissue of nacre, and while searching the web to understand my body, I read that rather than a rib, God created Eve from the baculum, missing in human men but apparent in other mammals, resulting in the shared perineal raphe or scar. I like the idea that the whole world is born from a scar, but I have long since abandoned literal interpretations of the myth that man comes first, and then, if she's lucky, woman. Instead, I imagine us slithering out of the dark with silt-covered bellies and still-to-be-determined forms, our sex oscillating before us like waves. The public beaches have been closed for 2 months now, but a girlfriend and I stand at the mouth of a marsh and hold onto each other's elbows as we slip into the salt, our feet sinking into the mud, the grass tickling our wrists. We shrink back when the water reaches the place between our legs, and in this, at least, we are the same. Has anybody here ever gone through like a mystic nun phase? Yeah. So when I started writing the early poems that are in this book, I was a pretty devout Christian, and there were times when I took deep comfort in the idea of Christ as a kind of spousal figure. And this poem is about that, I guess. It's called Your Body Like Mine. Your body, like mine, stank at the end of long hot days and must have stirred at the sight of certain bright bodies. You, too, fell ill, and as your fevers broke, whimpered, shiny and writhing as an exiled fish. I run palms down goosebump skin in the cold of naked mornings and wonder, do I animate hunger in the stomachs of men? Will some morning I be collected by the handful and brought to a prayerful tongue to trace away my imperfections? Surely you looked in awe at the machinations of your flesh and wondered how and if someone would someday receive you. Did you know then what would become of the body that opened for you to experience this world, of the arms and legs and buttocks that moved you through it, the neck that turned, the ears that heard, the muscles that tightened after hard work and which would be stretched to the point of becoming a door? Your chest, like mine, emptied at the not knowing. Or did you know? I am told you knew the temptations, the blemishes, the pain of men. Did you know the joys too? The sweet rush of the ocean's pull, the breath of flowers mingling, the knot in your stomach loosened. Could you feel then the whispering thirst in our mouths as we cross forehead and lip and breast, weaving for ourselves a veil that you might lift? I have a sequence of poems in the book that is after the parable of the 10 virgins, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a story. There's 10 virgins who are waiting to be admitted into a wedding feast, which is a metaphor for heaven. 5 of them have brought enough oil to light their lamps through the night. 5 of them have not brought enough oil and have to return to go get some. While they're away, the 5 that brought oil are admitted in, and when the other 5 return, they're denied entry. So I have this sequence called Self-Portrait as a Virgin, and kind of explores yeah, like this question of light and who has it, who's allowed to have it. So I'm going to just read one from that, and it's called Self-Portrait as a Virgin Cruising the Beach at Night. Coupled bodies pass like shadows cast from the windows of beach houses flickering along the shore. Lying at the end of a concrete jetty, I let sand grit into my skin, obedient as the save the date stuck to my fridge. My mouth surveys the unfixed blankness, muscle subsumed by the breadth and length and height and depth of the ocean at night. I listen to the sound it makes. I pay special attention to the sound. How it rushes in like tides of swelling glass, how it spills into the edges until the roar is stilled by its own weight pressed upon itself, and everything goes black except for a cutting bioluminescence. The moon shines with a consummate light. Its halo expands from a central point. Even when I close my eyes, I can still see it. Alan gave a wonderful introduction of what a pentimento is. It's an Italian word meaning to repent. It's particularly used when talking about painting, and so like if somebody paints something and they change the composition, but you still see that change under the final layer, that would be the pentimento. And so I'm going to read the poem that gives the book its title, and it's after a painting contentiously attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, but it made big headlines when it was the most expensive painting sold at the time that it was sold for $450 million. Salvator Mundi. At coffee, a would-be priest tells you the body is God's fingerprint in the world, a unique impression of love pulsing in the grocery, beating in the uncloaked chest at the pool, a murmur in the arm raised to catch a cab. He reads you a prayer to the Sacred Heart, and he in his pink shirt sfumatos with the heel of a palm across your face. You imagine his fingers in your mouth, your flesh twisted in his hook. I like that you have a sweet tooth. You tell a friend you want to hold your belief in God down in the bath, like one of those mothers you read about in the news. The incarnation is proof that the body matters. In painting, a pentimento is the echo of an artist's changed mind. Italian, to repent, an object or a gesture altered, replaced. In this way, a painting moves, the shadow of a body's I'm sorry. How much money would it take for you to unthread a man? Makes you think about the sanctity of life, $450 million, and Christ goes yachting with a Saudi prince. The cosmos in his left hand and his right erect, 2 fingers held heavenward like the doctor's ready to tick inside you like a clock. The sign of the cross, desiderio desideravi. You stomach the blame for not knowing. I wish you could be a little more gracious and forgiving. Did something happen? It's like car problems. You don't know shit. A man on a dating app asks if you're into kink. You take mushrooms in the woods and ask the clouds or your elbow, are there any reins on this thing? Jesus reigns with a bit in the mouth while pleasure bites away at the pain, slowing the gentle draw of milk. You practice surrender until there's nothing left to control. How many shades of pink come into focus when you close your eyes? The lambs open, glass and void. Air empties from the pelt, its tight curls waving in the bathwater and smiling too. Quick heads up, the next poem mentions gun violence. Also, like, maybe one of the downsides of like being a mystic nun who thinks that you're like the bride of Christ is that it really shapes the way that you experience your body. That's a large part of what this book is about, among other things. But this next poem is called Self-Portrait with Pelvic Wand. I hook the wand inside myself, having found a quiet time to gaze widely at my ceiling and loosen the sense that my body is closing, pick its little locks and breathe into the place my physical therapist showed me. Do you feel that widening? Sometimes I laugh at myself, at how I thought I would never let anything in, thought I would never come this far, this close to the edge inside myself, a large sound. Sometimes I laugh because what should be so natural seems to require magic, a few doctors, and some water-based lube. In the news, I read of another shooting, of a tired darkness that feels familiar, not because it arrives like clockwork, but because I have already held its shadow to myself. How the Spirit will come for us, not by sending shooters, but by turning our bodies into a night with no safety. My physical therapist is the first person I feel safe with, like this. She teaches me lullabies to massage into my pelvic floor, to take the baton and weave gesture into song, a skill I am learning like a language, perceive, decipher, interpret. I'm going to just read one more poem from Pentimento, and then I'm going to close with a new one. Thank you all for listening. This next poem is an ekphrastic poem about a painting that is called Jerry. Jerry. The same internet that teaches me about body neutrality and shows me young boys unabashedly loving each other on TikTok is the same internet where I read about queer futurity and promises deferred, where @Jeffrey James Fox cries when he says, "Society stole that from so many of us." It is the same internet that connects me to Luke, whom I am grabbing a drink with later, and delivers this message from a friend. And this is my coming out text now. And this one before my date. I hope you feel exactly like yourself. Remember your body and breath. My body, which put on clothes this morning, walked to work, took a shit after lunch, and which now stands in front of a portrait of a naked man. His name is Jerry, we are told, though he remains anonymous, his back turned to us, depicted on natural, unfinished wood. He silvers like an emulsion embedded into the birch, its grain indiscernible from the strokes of the brush, paint rippling like light at the bottom of a pool, almost transparent, already a ghost. On our date, Luke, a doctor, reminds me of the pandemic that filled hospitals with beautiful men. His older colleagues still speak of the grief, their fear now more refined. I have studied my back in a mirror, heavy with its own set of losses, already being forgotten by those who come after. Light does not gather in the non-existent dimples above my buttocks. The paint is not so thick at the crown of my head, which is beginning to reveal the grain beneath, and is not so perfectly, I woke up like this, tussled. I am painted with a heavier hand. This body with its elbow creases and its spine, which hurts in the morning and cracks, but only when I twist to the right for some reason. Its questionable moles, dry eyes, and delicate right knee. How absurdly unfinished it is. And yet, if ever I take off my shirt for Luke, please God, in the absence of screens, remember their bodies, their breath. He will see my shoulders falling like wings. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a joy and a privilege to be able to read with you and for you. I'm going to read one poem that is in the latest Poetry Project newsletter that's from a newer project that I'm working on after the paintings of Philip Pearlstein. Philip Pearlstein was a realist painter known for painting nude portraits at a time when figuration was not fashionable and frowned upon. And the thing that's so interesting about his work, to me at least, is that he at least said that his paintings did not factor in any regard for emotion or psychology or sexuality, that his figures were figures and forms on the same level as abstraction. And so this poem is called Torso, Female Nude, 1963. To be a body without comparison, backed against a wash of gray-blue weather, features exaggerated. I want you to show me your interior world, naked, reserved. Researchers simulate the acoustics of the Notre Dame before it burned. I tell you, I do not like to walk in the city. I hear your yawns from the other room. Your hand rests in the elastic of your briefs. This street, you say, is the most beautiful. Its daffodils humming in subtle variation, alabaster, Geraldine, turmeric, peridot, and there is no other word for it, yellow. Sound is transparent nearest to the altar. To be a body removed from its context, a singular landscape, there are many shadows. There are many sources of light. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Joshua. That was so beautiful. And thank you so much, Alan, for that introduction, which was also so beautiful. I feel incredibly lucky that this Emerge Surface B configuration came together. It's really been such a dream. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited that we have copies of Pentimento available for sale tonight if you don't already have one. And we'll also have issues of the newsletter, which has that really incredible poem that Joshua read. I'm really, really honored now to turn it over to Shiv Kotecha to introduce Charles Theonia.
Good evening. It's nice to see so many people here. Hi, Charles. I'm very excited to be introducing this book. It's right here, and I think it's over there. In a 1986 radio interview he gives to the radio station WKCR with his friend, the musician Peter Gordon, to plug the release of their collaboratively produced disco song, This Hat, about a hat that focuses the positive energy of the universe directly into one's consciousness. The legendary avant-garde cellist, disco music producer, and by several accounts, hot nerd and poet chaser, Arthur Russell, nay Charles, plays a song from a project he co-conducted a decade earlier titled Instrumentals, for which a half a dozen friends of the artist were invited to play various instruments for a full 48-hour performance. The idea of instrumentals, Russell says, was to have a core melody which has no form but which assumes a form gradually, one that unites a stream of events between a group of musicians. The point of the experiment was to activate the infinite variation of possibility of getting people together, with Russell, in proper form, recording the results onto tape. Like everything that emerges from his vast archive, the vast archives he left behind for his friends and lovers to apply some guesswork to and recombine, the songs in this selection are extremely satisfying to listen to. Jangly bedroom pop spurs heartstrings, followed by some tape hiss, followed by a sinuously plowed oboe, followed by tape hiss, followed by a swell of film music, followed by tape hiss, all played freely and with glee. A similar concoction of things makes unexpected, pleasurable contact in the title poem of Charles Theonia's debut collection of poems, Gay Heaven is a Dance Floor, But I Can't Relax, out this month on Archway Editions, and for sale here at the Poetry Project over there. Over the course of 20 or so desirous interlocked pieces, or maybe phrases, or maybe phases, or maybe passages, Theonia conducts a layered arrangement of poetic inquiry, keeping Russell's musical legacy and his social archive at its warbling center. Reaching back to Russell's 1980s as a proposal for an incorporative form, the way people speak music through the dance floor, Theonia's Gay Heaven reinterprets Russell's own Cagean constraint across media and across generations alike. Russell is only one of the many familiars that Theonia's poems are closely attuned to. The party people here include Bernadette Mayer, Beverly Glenn Copeland, Trish Sella, Simone White, Jack Spicer, Essex Hemphill, Joe Brainerd, Gerard Manley Hopkins, Tan Lin, Martin Wong, Diana Ross too, but with the sweet distance of a tweet, I'm also at this party. But per the collection's title, to be very clear, even here, the poet can't relax, because the poet continues to want to get closer to what sustains them, the connection itself. Form is forever. It will have to fall apart over and under again, writes Theonia, and everybody is no accident, and approach is a sensation. There's another moment in the interview with Russell I cite above, where he's asked about where he met his friend Peter, and he replies, I think the first time we ran into each other was at St. Mark's Poetry Project. In the poems that comprise Theonia's Gay Heaven, utopia is not a place at all, but what one aches for, a compulsion to keep remaking the world, a life lived embracing the erotics of squirming, or as they write in Joy Cups, an essay recently published in a Poetry Project newsletter about pissing. I didn't write this down. I'm just guessing, but pissing the repression away and learning to enjoy the substance itself. This is Theonia waving off a prescriptive question can air out our field of attention. Make room in your mind, their poems tell me, for another thought. I failed at describing the charisma and warmth and wit with which Charles Theonia charms and impresses me as a friend and as a martini drinker and as a co-organizer in this introduction, and I've only started to describe the very buzzing energy or the core melody at the heart of this book, but I'm honored to introduce Charles to the approach tonight at the Poetry Project and the poems which remind me of the radical nearness that is possible and that we have at hand. Please give a round of applause for Charles.
Thank you, Shiv. I literally had a dream about this. When I was working on this book, I dreamed that Shiv was my translator into English. So I think that happened. I'm really happy to be here tonight. Thank you, Joshua. I hope by the end of this reading, we'll have convinced everyone to go to the bar and begin a marathon reading of Bob Gluck's Marjorie Kemp, which is absolutely about marrying Christ. And I'm really happy to be here at the Poetry Project, which has been a home for me for so long. And Shiv has mentioned that we're co-organizing around the Palestinian academic and cultural boycott of Israel, which the Poetry Project has been such an amazing leader in their organizing. So thanks to them. And if you want to come talk to me or Shiv or many of us in this room about that, I see a lot of us here tonight. So I'm going to read some poems. Earthly Reasons. Say what you will about cats, but I don't see any of you breaking into the bathroom out of love for me. I really do savor the moment I open the morning door and liquid cats spill in. A favorite thing about plural cats is listening, you have no idea how many they are. Their foreheads light milk smell. A like-minded person across the world designed a perfume called Fluffy Brow. I'd like to visit the island where cats outnumber people. The parallel islands of foxes, rabbits. Lucky for us, we dream in landscapes beyond our experience. Desert mountains scrolling by. Into silver monkey and capybara, hot springs float with steamy oranges. Into passion fruit, its pink egg. Into 2 white cups, form holding itself open. Messy hair of the rambutan, its pearly egg into its own glow. Blueberry vinegar, a canker sore brightens the mouth. A walk on the sunny side into Kelly's 7-hour disco research playlist. The extended cut, a technology for sensing forever. Wild Heart dressing room video, 1981. Into mallet instruments, when Carly drops the beat on Don't Give It Up, when Gerard says my heart in hiding stirred for a bird. The bouquet in my lobby said, Kayla, I'm an idiot and an asshole. Every year, I can hardly believe we live on a planet where flowers grow on trees. Our gay beach nutcracker sociality, communal limerita into pink plastic chalice, the piss fence, rainbow, literal dolphins, all of us, human chained to riptide, vomiting salt water back on shore to straddle each other on hot sand, cheering when the clouds part back. Into octopuses underwater, turning colors in their sleep. Their arm brains, visible thoughts, light they see with their skin. Hannah says we shouldn't stop eating octopuses because of how smart they are, but how hard they try to escape. Into pleasure of knowing how something works, revulsion at how we found out. Into our expanses of bleached, silent reefs. I haven't even made it into human pain. I spend my time writing poems, and Wendy says we need those less than a brick through a window, as she keeps writing them too. If the poem is into all those who swipe it forward, sit for court support, manage a bail fund, spark a rent strike, bring meals, share meds, walk friends home, there's a lot to go looking for. Via Agnes's room at Dia, I had no reason to worry it wouldn't be there each time I returned. By cell phone sentries, the 17th century still life lizard, reaching their forked tongue up tulip. Via Picard arguing before a Starfleet tribunal that Data should be referred to not as it, but he. By June becoming in front of us a menace to her enemies. Via Alice always crotch naked for music, unowning all seeds. And when Bernadette goes, nothing outside will cure you, but everything's outside. When Arthur goes, it's a big old world with nothing in it. I can't wait to see you another minute. I feel both of that. My external endocrine system, advances in vegan cheese, your ass ascending a staircase. Into rain on the shower skylight, I look forward to pickles, especially pink, endorphins of any origin, what we do after the nation and after the police. My hand up your overall shorts and happy animals running into me. I'll read one that takes its structure from Joe Brainerd's mini essays, which have a short title and like a one-liner. Truth game. Optimist. I think I am an optimist because I see many cats, but 9 out of 10 are plastic bags. Something wrong. With enough conviction and for at least a little while, almost anyone can convince me I've done something wrong. Prime directive. My prime directive is to not bother anyone, but I keep writing poetry. Blurting. I wish I didn't. Do it, but I don't know what I want until I'm doing it. Basic. Reading Judith Butler made me trans. The truth. And the truth. Why is the truth so narrow-minded? I was about to order an impossible bagel when a chihuahua woke me up from a dream of a basketball machine called Sensitive Boy Sensations, 50 cents to play. Restaurant. If I were a restaurant, I wouldn't go back to me. Companionship. It would be better to be completely encased. Need. My therapist said I have a gaping hole of need. Who asked you? I like to think I keep my need hole pretty neat along the edges. Heavenly breakfast. In a communal situation, bisexuality has to be of at least passing interest to everyone. Today. Today is a good day to look at a photo of early Samuel R. Delany. If anyone's watching at home, you can Google that right now. Young Samuel Delany. You too. No, I won't stop you. Big hands. That gif of a big hand squeezing juice from a shampoo ginger flower. Affinity politics. My enduring affinity for art by gay men who don't care about me. Community. A lake full of identical jellyfish looking at itself. Erotics of the absent mind. If my mind is going to be elsewhere, you'd better believe I'm making the most of the hole it left. Who asked you? As soon as one joke is over, you need another one. Mouth weather. New poem. Longer. I wake up unwilling with a dog on my neck, everything moving, sluggish, molecular, cold. The kitchen table is a desk, so I don't have to step from the stream of your commentary or the walls heating up in morning's directions. A dog is about bringing the outside in while there is still an outside. Attention alters the temperature, movement on the level of vibration. Slight openings to press a cheek to and express the workday pores. Approach is a sensation. We're heading in non-parallel directions, leaving touch on the table. I invite you into the space of my body for study. Discovering operations of nearness and the adapter I need to interface with your inner delight. Everything on the table helps me reach for it. A chihuahua sleeps for 18 hours a day. I extend our bubble with a tongue and snowfall begins, leaving work obsolete. I like it when you tell me where your mouth has been. Begin can be replaced with any word that brings you closer. The People's Beach. On your leash, I'm accounted for. Femmes cuddle up on the sand. You grab my ass, say you like to see us enjoying each other. Drive-by stench of the water pollution plant. Police copters agitate overhead. They dragged a guy naked down the boardwalk when his towel fell. Up beach, private hammocks, palm trees for rent, versus nutcrackers on our seedier stretch. Rosy lizard insides read sticky lychee skin. I'm reading Bob Gluck's gyroscopic nipples. You're purse-strung under pasties, honey gauze dissolving stitches. Me, I'm years out and still livid pink. Resolution? I don't know her. We sink in. Even the book is sweaty. Let's get out of here. Coin flip. Being already late, I thought I'd stop and finish my page. It read, "Not solving my problems until they occur, I ever suddenly realized you were gone." The calendar said, "Undergo 21 days of garlic to become a woman." Tails, "I'm behind because I didn't know I want to be here." Heads, distracted by a shadow. Heads held between stations. Tails, consumed by envy. Heads, undone by seasonal shifts in relation. Tails, waved by pond light. Heads tied up in public fantasy too far for touch. Tails, the sun is over there, like during that time of day plastics rustle. Hair on my arm, your breath. I know we're not. I moved everything aside, trying to find it. 4 trees a month. It's Abigail's birthday, so we'd chew her food for her. In trucking after dinner, the sky's low with clouds. She says it'll feel this way when we don't have sky at all, just a close expanse of cover. In our last years of plants and animals, Belle wants to learn 4 trees a month. Visitor from the future, overcome by the sight of a living horse. We swish zillions of arcade baskets, shooting for 3 in the last 10 seconds. When Kelly can't find unflavored chapstick, they say, "Help me, my family's dying." When something made them gay, they say, "It ruined my life." Saul says one coral can externalize its stomach to digest another if they get too close. A line of Bernadette misread, "We were supposed to have sex without knowing anyone." My face on loose, I use it all the same. We don't want to do what we have to live. I reach for Midwinter Day, but it's lost in off-season Montauk. Sand rolling out in dry ice fog. I sit down to remember lists. Art by friends, clothing, trash, nothing too small. Dreams where one becomes another, gesture to ways of loving out of time. A man who can stand in for her whole past in any dream, and living looks like pulling on his clothes when he can't leave the house. I wear Saul's sweatshirt before they take it back to sleep. Clear weather. Going outside doesn't glisten. I don't want to be good nor love. He said, "Careful, we don't like that here," and that on your block. Losing control my hand, your pocket slipping, follow cloud coat up street via my dream of cedar, outside the Associated. Is that you? It was, and we hugged. Algae in another season, she jumped where a lawn, green dog not mine to wash. Living 9 years at her size. How could he do it? Or at most, alternatively not. Are raccoons growing rounder, infinitesimal tonight? Well, a lot in it. You wait for me pondside. Early magnolia fir, set in articulated snow. Claw nor love control my hand. Up street via cloud cover shifting when I cover you, kumquat comes off, leaving on foot for green. Bloom algae in another, sky purples, obscurely happy for having nowhere to be. Tap to hear space inside its indefinite vision. In our night is night forever, up to waking up, leaving on foot at 1. And I'll read one more. Lily pad. Before I went too far and added violet, at the last minute, without exchanging a word, we forgot to break the rules. I could have popped the bottle when Mona said champagne on the road is better. Absorbed, I dream you're mad at me, waiting above a pond we fuck on the soft air. Expectation is a narrative error. Marking the hours by how often you empty the rain bucket is better than work. It is recommended that we reserve dream enactment for the 3rd date, or later, walk in the belly between our apartments. Full of news, I kiss you against a public wall to trade the morning for warm winter sun. Prosecco, a tricky secret. With each new person arises an ever more highly specialized self-consciousness. I would like to believe you don't mind I reset skin distance at each beginning. could go on forever as the morning had, extended itself down a pink hallway. We met without sending our thoughts ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. That was, I felt like completely like under a spell. That was so beautiful. I'm so excited about this book. I'm so delighted that we have copies available for sale, as well as of Charles's really wonderful Belladonna chaplet. So be sure before you go to pick up copies of all these incredible books, and then see you next week, I hope. Thank you so, so much. And thank you so much, Shiv, for that introduction, which was truly wonderful. This was really such a gift of a night. Thank you. Thanks.